The massive space station hung in the darkness like a glowing jewel, its crystal walls pulsing with soft blue light. Inside the main chamber, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that seemed to float in midair. The air itself buzzed with worry and fear. Commander Hugh stood in the center of the room, his black uniform marking him as the only human present. His dark eyes moved slowly across the strange faces staring back at him. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like giant insects with multiple eyes. A few glowed with their own inner light. He knew why he was here. He knew what they were going to decide. But he had to stay calm and pretend he did not know what was coming. The Zephyrian delegate raised one of its thin, wing-like arms. Its body looked like it was made of glass and wind, always shifting and moving. When it spoke, the words came through a small metal box that translated its thoughts into sounds humans could understand. "Look at this evidence," the Zephyrian said, its voice high and musical but filled with anger. Bright images appeared in the air above the table, showing human ships and human technology. These humans took our quantum engines and made them better in just a few months. It took our people 300 years to develop that same technology. Commander Hugh watched the images float past. He recognized some of the ships. He had helped design them. The aliens were right to be worried, but they had no idea how right they were. The Kithara delegate made a clicking sound with its mouth parts. It looked like a giant ant but stood upright like a person. Its 4 arms moved quickly as it brought up new images. These showed human soldiers walking through storms that would kill most other beings. Their bodies changed to survive anywhere, the Kithara clicked. They breathe poison gas and walk on worlds hot enough to melt metal. They are like a disease that spreads to every planet they touch. From high above in the observation area, Dr. Minho watched the debate with growing fear. He was a small man with kind eyes and gray hair. Next to him, Admiral Day gripped the metal railing so hard his knuckles turned white. Both men knew secrets that these aliens could never imagine. "We have been watching humans for 50 years, said another delegate. This one looked like a tree made of living metal, its voice deep and slow like distant thunder. "They reproduce faster than any intelligent species we have ever seen. They learn faster. They adapt faster. They are dangerous." More evidence appeared in the air. Pictures of human colonies on dead worlds. Videos of human children learning to use alien technology as easily as toys. Charts showing how quickly humans spread from planet to planet. Admiral Day leaned close to Dr. Minho and whispered, "They have no idea how many colonies we really have." Dr. Minho nodded but kept his eyes on Commander Hugh below. The young commander stood perfectly still, showing no emotion as alien after alien spoke about humanity like they were talking about a plague. The ancient ethereal arbiter finally spoke. It was the oldest being in the room, so old that nobody remembered what it originally looked like. Now it was just a glowing shape that changed form constantly, sometimes looking almost human, sometimes like pure light. "We have heard all the evidence," the arbiter said, its voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. "Now we must vote. All in favor of classifying humanity as a Class X expansion threat." 12 arms, tentacles, and appendages rose into the air. The vote was unanimous. By Council Decree 2847, the arbiter announced, "Humanity is now classified as a Class X expansion threat. All human vessels must return to the Sol system within 30 standard cycles. Any human ship found beyond the designated boundary will be destroyed without warning." Commander Hugh finally spoke. "And if we refuse? Then you will be eliminated," the Kithara delegate clicked. "Every last one of you." "I understand," Commander Hugh said calmly. "I will deliver your message to Earth." As the meeting ended and the aliens began to leave, Admiral Day pulled out a small communication device. It looked like an ordinary piece of jewelry, but it could send messages across the galaxy instantly without anyone detecting them. He pressed a tiny button and spoke in a whisper that only Dr. Minho could hear. "Operation Dandelion is now active. Repeat, Operation Dandelion is now active." Somewhere far away, on a dozen different worlds that the Council knew nothing about, humans received the message. In hidden colonies and secret research stations, people began to move with quiet urgency. Dr. Minho looked at his old friend with sad eyes. "Do you think they will forgive us for what we are about to do?" Admiral Day watched Commander Hugh walking alone toward his ship, surrounded by alien guards who thought they were escorting a defeated enemy. "They gave us no choice," he said quietly. "They wanted to cage us like animals. Now they will learn what happens when you threaten humanity." The great space station continued to glow in the darkness, its alien inhabitants celebrating their victory. They thought they had solved the human problem before it could become truly dangerous. They had no idea it was already far too late. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a hidden bunker that stretched for miles underground, Admiral Yoon sat at a table that glowed with blue light. The room hummed with the sound of computers and communication devices working at full speed. Officers ran back and forth carrying messages and data tablets, their faces serious and worried. The Admiral was an old man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had spent 40 years protecting humanity, and now he faced the biggest challenge of his life. In front of him, ghostly blue figures appeared around the table like people made of light. These were colony governors from across the galaxy, speaking to him through special technology that let them talk instantly across impossible distances. The message came through 30 minutes ago, Admiral Yoon said, his voice steady but grim. The Galactic Council has given us 30 days to return all our ships to the Sol system. Any human vessel found beyond their boundary will be destroyed. The blue figures around the table shifted and moved. Some looked angry. Others seemed afraid. But Governor Hannah of the Proxima settlements just smiled in a way that made her look dangerous. Let me understand this correctly, she said, her voice crackling through the quantum connection. The Council thinks they know about all our colonies. Admiral Yoon nodded. According to their intelligence reports, they believe we have 37 settlements beyond Earth. Governor Hannah's smile grew wider. How wonderfully wrong they are. We have 43 systems they do not even know exist. Dr. June, the chief engineer of the secret colony program, raised his hand. He was a younger man with kind eyes but a mind that worked like a computer. With a few quick movements of his fingers, he activated a holographic map that appeared above the table. Suddenly the room filled with tiny points of light, each one representing a human colony. There were hundreds of them, scattered across the galaxy like stars in the night sky. Some were close together in small clusters. Others stood alone in the dark spaces between alien territories. These are our stealth colonies, Dr. June explained, pointing to different areas of the map. Each one has been operating in complete secrecy for years. They grow their own food, build their own ships, and create their own technology. The aliens cannot detect them because we built them using methods they do not understand. Captain Leah of the Deep Space Fleet leaned forward, her face excited. She was a woman who lived for danger and challenge, and her eyes sparkled with anticipation. Our technology is not just different from theirs. It is better. We have been studying alien ships for decades, taking them apart piece by piece, learning how they work. She gestured and new images appeared in the air. These showed human ships that looked nothing like the vessels the Council knew about. They seemed to bend light around themselves, becoming almost invisible. Their hulls shifted and changed like living things. We took their quantum drives and made them faster, Captain Leah continued. We studied their weapons and created better ones. We learned their communication systems and built networks they cannot hack. Every technology they have, we have improved. Commander Tai, who ran the secret transport operations, laughed quietly. He was a man who enjoyed irony and clever tricks. The most beautiful part of all this is how we spread so far so fast. While the Council was having meetings and debates about whether humans were dangerous, we were using their own trade routes to carry our colony ships. The other governors looked at him with curiosity and admiration. We built automated colony ships that looked exactly like normal cargo containers, Commander Tai explained. Alien merchants carried them from system to system without knowing what they were transporting. When the ships reached the right location, they would separate from the merchant vessel and fly to nearby planets to start new colonies. Admiral Yoon stood up slowly, his decision already made. Around him, the holographic governors waited for his orders. Outside the bunker, he knew that alien ships were probably already moving toward Earth, ready to enforce the Council's ultimatum. Here is what we are going to do, he said, his voice strong and clear. We will publicly agree to their demands. We will recall our visible fleets and close down the colonies they know about. We will make a big show of obeying their orders. Some of the governors looked confused, but Admiral Yoon raised his hand for silence. But Operation Dandelion continues in secret. Our hidden colonies will keep growing. Our stealth ships will keep exploring new systems. Our automated factories will keep building more colony ships. We will spread across the galaxy like seeds on the wind, and the aliens will never see us coming. Governor Hannah nodded with approval. They think they are putting us in a cage. They do not realize we are already outside the cage. Dr. June added more details to the holographic map, showing planned expansion routes and new colony sites. By the time they discover the truth about our real numbers, we will be too strong and too spread out for them to stop. How long do you think we have before they figure it out? Asked Captain Lear. Admiral Yoon thought for a moment, then smiled grimly. Maybe a year. Maybe 2. But it will not matter. Every day they wait, we get stronger. Every month they delay, we claim more worlds. The holographic governors nodded in agreement, their faces determined and ready for the challenge ahead. The council made one critical mistake, Admiral Yoon said as the meeting came to an end. They assumed we would fight them the way they fight each other. They expected us to follow their rules and respect their boundaries. They never considered that we might simply ignore them completely. As the blue figures faded away, Admiral Yoon looked at the star map still glowing above the table. Humanity's real expansion was just beginning, and the aliens had no idea what was coming. 18 months had passed since the Council issued their ultimatum to humanity, and Intelligence Officer Veltar floated in his special water tank high above the galaxy. His body was like a giant octopus, but with skin that changed colors to show his emotions. Right now, his skin kept shifting from blue to purple, which meant he was worried about something. The surveillance station where he worked was enormous, bigger than most cities. It hung in empty space between the stars, watching everything that moved in the galaxy. Thousands of sensors and computers tracked every ship, every message, every sign of life across hundreds of star systems. Veltar's tentacles moved quickly across the glowing screens that surrounded his tank. 4 months, all the reports had been good news. Human ships had disappeared from the major space routes. Earth had recalled its fleets and closed its outer colonies. Everything seemed to be going exactly as the Council had planned. But something felt wrong. Officer Veltar called his assistant, a young Zephyrian named Kess. She looked like a person made of glass and wind, her body always shifting slightly as if she might blow away. I have some strange readings from Sector 847. Veltar's skin turned a deeper purple. Sector 847 was supposed to be empty space, far from any known trade routes or colonies. What kind of readings? Kess brought up a holographic display that showed waves and patterns of energy. Gravitational disturbances that suggest something very large is there. But our senses show nothing but empty space. This made no sense. Gravitational disturbances meant mass, and mass that big should be visible to their senses. Veltar studied the data with growing concern, his tentacles working faster across the controls. Deploy a full reconnaissance drone swarm, he ordered. I want every type of sensor we have pointed at that sector. Something is hiding there, and I want to know what it is. The drones were small, fast ships with no crew aboard. They flew through space like a school of metal fish, each one carrying different types of scanning equipment. It took them 3 days to reach Sector 847 and begin their analysis. When the results came back, Veltar's skin turned almost black with shock. The drones detected energy signatures unlike anything in the Council's databases. There were quantum distortions that suggested massive industrial activity. Most disturbing of all, there were biological readings that matched human life signs. Lots of them. This cannot be right, Veltar muttered, his tentacles trembling. Run the scans again. The second scan confirmed the first. Something was definitely there, something big enough to house thousands of people and advanced enough to hide from the Council's best sensors. Veltar immediately sent an alert to the nearest patrol ship, a Kithara vessel called the Shard of Truth. The Kithara were insect-like beings who made excellent soldiers and investigators. If anyone could figure out what was hiding in Sector 847, they could. Captain Zix of the Shard of Truth was a veteran officer with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see things other species missed. When his ship arrived at the coordinates Veltar had provided, his instruments showed the same confusing readings. Empty space that somehow contained massive amounts of energy and life. Activate full-spectrum scanners, Captain Zix ordered his crew. Something is using stealth technology to hide from us. As the Shard of Truth moved deeper into the sector, their advanced scanners began to penetrate whatever was hiding the mysterious presence. Slowly, like a picture coming into focus, they began to see what was really there. A massive space station orbited a brown dwarf star that barely glowed with its own weak light. The station was huge, easily large enough to house 1 million people. Around it, dozens of smaller structures floated in perfect formation. Mining ships moved between asteroids, harvesting materials. Construction vessels worked on expanding the station even larger. It was a thriving human colony, hidden in a place where no one would think to look. As the Kithara ship approached, defensive platforms suddenly appeared on their sensors. These weapons were unlike anything the Council had ever seen, with designs that seemed to bend space around themselves. Unknown vessel, this is Colony Administrator Jin, came a calm human voice over the communication system. You are entering sovereign human space. Please state your business and intentions. Captain Zix's mandibles clicked together in confusion and anger. Sovereign human space? This sector was designated as restricted under Council Decree 2847. When did you establish this colony? There was a pause, and then Administrator Jin replied in a tone that was perfectly polite but somehow threatening. We established this colony 5 years ago, Captain. We have been here much longer than your decree has existed. The implications hit Captain Zix like a physical blow. If this colony was 5 years old, it meant humans had been planning and building in secret long before the Council had even identified them as a threat. Back at the surveillance station, Veltar received Captain Zix's report with growing horror. His skin had turned completely black now, the color his people showed when facing their worst fears. Send priority alerts to all Council members, he ordered Kess. We need emergency patrol fleets deployed to every sector immediately. Over the next few weeks, the reports came flooding in from across the galaxy. Sector after sector revealed hidden human colonies, each one more advanced and better hidden than the last. Some were built inside asteroid belts, invisible among the floating rocks. Others hid in the atmospheres of gas giant planets. A few had been constructed in the space between galaxies, where no one would ever think to look. Each colony was completely self-sufficient, with its own farms, factories, and defense systems. Each one claimed to have been established years before the Council's ultimatum. Each one politely but firmly declared itself to be sovereign human territory. Veltar floated in his tank, staring at the reports with growing dread. The humans had not just ignored the Council's ultimatum. They had anticipated it. While the Council had been debating and planning, humanity had been quietly spreading across the galaxy like an invisible plague. The worst part was that these were probably just the colonies they had found. How many more were still hiding in the dark spaces between the stars? Veltar's skin had gone beyond black to a color his species rarely showed, a deep void that meant absolute terror. The humans had been 3 steps ahead of them from the very beginning, and now it might already be too late to stop them. The Great Council chamber had never seen such panic. Representatives from 12 alien species sat around the floating table, but instead of their usual calm debate, the room buzzed with fear and confusion. Emergency lights flashed red along the crystal walls, and the bioluminescent panels pulsed rapidly like a heartbeat. Veltar floated in his mobile water tank at the center of the room, his tentacles moving frantically across holographic controls. His skin had turned bright red, a color his people showed only in extreme danger. Around him, the other Council members waited with growing dread for his report. Honored Council, Veltar began, his voice shaking through the translation device. What we discovered is far worse than our most pessimistic projections. The humans are not just in a few hidden colonies. They are everywhere. He activated the main display, and suddenly the chamber filled with a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Tiny red dots appeared across the star field, each one representing a human settlement. At first there were dozens, then hundreds, then so many that entire sectors glowed red like infected wounds. Asteroid mining colonies hidden in debris fields, Veltar continued, pointing to clusters of dots. Research stations floating in the atmospheres of gas giants. Settlements built on rogue planets that drift in the void between stars. Their expansion follows no pattern we understand. They go to places we considered uninhabitable. Admiral Sull of the Draconis Empire rose from his seat, his reptilian features twisted with rage. He was a warrior from a species that had conquered dozens of worlds through military might. His scaled fist crashed down on the table with a sound like breaking stone. How many? He demanded, his voice a threatening growl. Give me numbers. How many colonies are we facing? Veltar's skin shifted to pale yellow, the color of absolute fear among his people. Conservative estimate, based on what we have found so far? Over 300 active settlements. But Admiral, their technology has advanced beyond anything we thought possible. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of machinery and the nervous sounds each species made when afraid. The Zephyrians rustled their glass-like wings. The Kithara clicked their mandibles. The tree-like Verdani creaked like wood in a strong wind. Show us, whispered the ancient ethereal arbiter, its voice barely audible through the dimensional translators. Veltar's tentacles danced across the controls, and new images filled the air above the table. The first showed a planet called Kepler 78c, a world so hot that its surface glowed like molten metal. The temperature there was over 2,000 degrees, hot enough to melt most known materials. But in the images, human figures walked calmly across the burning landscape. Their suits seemed to flow and change like liquid, adapting to the impossible heat in real time. They moved with easy confidence, as if strolling through a garden instead of across the surface of hell. "This is impossible," breathed the Zephyrian delegate. "No known technology can protect organic life in those conditions." "They have taken our biotechnology and merged it with quantum mechanics," Veltar explained, his color now cycling rapidly between yellow and purple. "Their equipment does not just protect them from hostile environments. It adapts and evolves constantly, learning from each new challenge." More images appeared. Human ships that seemed to phase in and out of reality, passing through solid matter as if it were air. Defensive systems that caught enemy weapons and somehow turned the attacks back on the attackers. Construction projects that defied the laws of physics, with materials that bent space around themselves. "Most disturbing of all," Veltar continued, "is that these colonies operate completely independently. Earth is not controlling them. Each settlement makes its own decisions, builds its own technology, expands at its own pace. They have created a network that has no central weakness we can attack." Admiral Sol slammed his fist down again. "Then we destroy them one by one. Deploy the full Council fleet. Burn every human settlement we can find." Before anyone could respond, the main communication screen activated. A human woman appeared, sitting calmly in what looked like an office or command center. She had dark hair and kind eyes, but there was something in her expression that made every being in the chamber feel afraid. "Greetings, honored counselors," she said with perfect politeness. "I am Dr. Nari, speaking to you from our settlement at Wolf 359. I thought this would be a good time for us to have a conversation." The council members looked at each other in shock. No one had activated the communication system. Somehow, this human had taken control of their most secure networks. "You have been monitoring our communications for decades," Dr. Nari continued, still smiling that terrifying calm smile. "Did you really think we were not monitoring yours? We know everything about you. Your fleet compositions. Your technological capabilities. The psychological weaknesses of each species represented in this chamber." Admiral Sol stood up, his claws extended. "How dare you?" "Admiral Sol of the Draconis Empire," Dr. Nari interrupted smoothly. "Your species responds to shows of strength, but you fear opponents you cannot intimidate. You have 6 to 7 battleships in your home fleet, armed with plasma cannons that are effective only at close range. Your pilots are brave but predictable, following attack patterns that have not changed in 3 centuries. The reptilian admiral's mouth fell open in shock. Dr. Nari turned her attention to the others. "Veltar of the Nephrians, your people process information faster than most species, but you become paralyzed when facing too many unknowns at once. The Zephyrians are excellent engineers but poor warriors, preferring to avoid conflict. The Kithara fight well in groups but struggle with individual initiative." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You declared us a threat before you understood what we had already become," she said. "While you spent years debating our potential danger, we were quietly learning everything about you and growing beyond your ability to contain or control." The communication ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Veltar's skin had gone completely white, a color his people showed only when facing certain death. Around the table, the other species sat in shocked quiet, finally understanding the terrible truth. They had not been preparing to fight an enemy. They had been prey, studied and catalogued by predators they never saw coming. The age of council dominance was over, and they had never even realized the war had already begun. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Incheon, watching through the great windows as the last alien fleet disappeared into the darkness of space. The enemy ships moved quickly, running away from human territory as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, their faces calm and satisfied. The bridge was a marvel of human engineering, with walls that seemed to be made of living light and control panels that responded to thought as much as touch. Everything hummed with quiet power, from the gravity generators beneath their feet to the reality-bending weapons that had just proven their superiority over the galaxy's former masters. "Commander Ryu," Admiral Kang said without turning around, "give me the final report." Commander Ryu was a tall woman with sharp eyes who had served with the Admiral for 15 years. She checked her holographic display and spoke with professional precision. 4 to 7 Council fleets engaged across 18 different star systems. Total human casualties, 0. Total alien ships destroyed, 432. Lieutenant Su, a young man who monitored enemy communications, looked up from his station with amazement still clear on his face. "Their weapons couldn't even touch our ships, sir. Our adaptive shielding absorbed everything they threw at us and fed the energy back into our own systems. Navigator Bong, an older man who had helped plan the human expansion for decades, smiled grimly as he studied the tactical displays. Their ships tried to escape, but our gravity snares held them like insects in a web. Some of their captains actually surrendered rather than continue fighting. Dr. May, the expedition's expert on alien biology and psychology, rose from her analysis station near the back of the bridge. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but her voice carried a note of scientific fascination mixed with something that might have been pity. The Council species are in full retreat, she reported. Our long-range sensors show them pulling back to their oldest, most heavily defended worlds. Some have activated planetary defense protocols that they probably haven't used in thousands of years. They are absolutely terrified. Admiral Kang finally turned away from the window to face his crew. He was a man in his 60s, with gray hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent his life preparing for this moment. His uniform was simple and practical, marking him as a soldier rather than a politician. "Show me the Arbiter's final message," he ordered. The main screen activated, displaying the image of the ancient ethereal Arbiter, the oldest and most powerful being on the Galactic Council. The creature that had once seemed so mysterious and threatening now looked small and broken. Its voice shook as it spoke. We underestimated," the Arbiter said, its form flickering like a dying light. "The containment protocol has failed completely. Humanity is beyond our ability to control. All Council forces are ordered to retreat to defensive positions. We can only hope they will show us mercy." The message ended, and the bridge fell silent for a moment. Then Admiral Kang walked to the communication console and activated the galaxy-wide broadcast system. His message would reach every inhabited planet, every space station, every ship from the outer rim to the galactic core. "To the members of the Galactic Council and all who can hear this transmission," he began, his voice steady and strong. "I am Admiral Kang of the Human Colonial Defense Force. This is a message for the history books." He gestured toward the tactical display that showed human colonies spread across the galaxy like points of light in the darkness. Each dot represented thousands of people, advanced technology, and the power to shape worlds according to human will. "You had decades to welcome humanity as partners in galactic civilization," Admiral Kang continued. "Instead, you chose to see us as a threat that needed to be contained. You were right to fear us, but you made one critical mistake. You were already far too late." The display shifted to show human expansion over time, revealing how colonies had spread invisibly through space while the Council debated and planned. Worlds that the aliens had considered uninhabitable now bloomed with human life. Technologies they thought impossible had become everyday tools in human hands. While you spent years debating our fate in your crystal chambers, we were out here building our future. Every world you dismissed as too hot, too cold, or too dangerous, we made into a home. Every technology you believed was beyond us, we mastered and improved. Every boundary you tried to set, we crossed before you even knew we were there. The image changed again, showing human expedition fleets launching toward the galactic core, heading for the ancient worlds that had been the centers of alien civilization for millions of years. "The age of Council dominance is over," Admiral Kang declared. "The age of humanity has begun. To those species who welcome us as friends and equals, we offer partnership, protection, and the chance to learn from each other. To those who still think they can oppose us." He paused, letting the silence stretch across space to every listening ear in the galaxy. "Ask the Council how well that worked out for them." As the transmission ended, Admiral Kang turned back to his crew. Around them, the ship hummed with power and possibility. Through the windows, the stars beckoned like distant shores waiting to be explored. "Signal all expedition fleets," he ordered. "Operation Dandelion Phase 2 is now active. Send the message to every human colony, every research station, every hidden outpost in the galaxy." Commander Ryu's fingers danced across her controls. "Message sent, sir. All units are responding. They're ready for the next phase." Admiral Kang smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Then it's time to introduce ourselves properly to the rest of the galaxy. The stars have been waiting for us long enough." Outside the ship, human vessels began moving toward destinations that had been planned for years but kept secret until this moment. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and challenges that humanity had only begun to explore. The age of hiding was over. The age of expansion had begun. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the future of countless worlds was being written by human hands.